Journeyman Chronicles.
Music and production, Rok10 Productions, the whole owning your own production company. When did this come about? Because you're fairly young.
Yeah,
So,
I'm 28.
Yeah. So and when I'm looking online, you started Rok10 Productions in 2013, roughly. Is that right?
Yeah, like 2012, like officially, but actually 2013. Yeah.
Okay, so take me back then. This is 9-10 years ago. You're 18, 19 years old.
Yeah.
What's going through your mind? Did you grow up in a musically inclined household, or were you always surrounded by?
My family's not really musical at all. I remember like vague memories of like my dad like singing when I was little, but not like, like playing the piano and doing all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
When I was in 2008, 2009, I was in a like a screamo band.
Screamo.
Yeah, we were called Shatter.
Is this off of emo? Or is this like
it kind of it was like kind of like deathcore.
Okay.
Or like if you're familiar with like grindcore or like scream, like there's the genre of like real heavy rock where it's like just like guttural, like bree, you know what I mean?
Yep.
So in like 2007, 2008, somewhere around then, a buddy of mine was in a band, and his fam was super into music, and they had a practice space at their house. And like I had no idea anything about music, wasn't classically trained, wasn't really practiced at anything, but I was like, I want to get girls, and like let's start a band. You know what I mean? It'll be a good time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And some of those guys knew a lot more. What they were actually doing, but we played a bunch of local shows at the time. The Chameleon was like this awesome venue in Lancaster.
Yep.
Everyone was trying to get in there and stuff. We got to play there. I was really stoked.
Was it packed? What was it like?
So we were on a like everyone's friends here bill, where it was like a metal band, a rapper, a country, or you know what I mean. It was so there was a lot of people there, but it was like whether they were digging what we were doing. Like we definitely brought people out. Like we were real nice with selling tickets and shit.
Nice.
But I don't know if like there were really a lot of people there like to see us specifically. They were just at the show. But yeah, so like during that time period in my life, we had an opportunity to record a record. At the time with Grant McFarland and Carson Slovak, who have Atrium Audio over at Rok10 now.
Okay.
They had a studio over at 417 West Grand Street, which is where Rok10 is, where my studio's at. But back in the day, there was just one studio there. It was called Century, and that's where Grant and Carson were working at. I fell in love with being in a studio from being like around that shit, and then I can really get into it if you want, but a whole lot of other stuff happened.
You said you weren't musically inclined, and you didn't grow up in a household that had music in it. So what was it about music for you, besides the fact that you wanted to get the girls in the band?
Yeah,
something about music that you gravitated to, that you're doing what you're doing now.
Yeah, isn't it just that simple, I guess? Yeah, I mean, it was really just like trying to get girls, and then like I don't know, I always like it's weird. Like when I was like growing up, it was never like my friends weren't like, oh, I got the cool new shoes, or I got the cool new song. Have you heard this song yet? You know what I mean? There was a lot of like coolness being derived from finding new music. You know what I mean? So I was like scouring the internet and finding all these like real crazy playlists and like wild remixes and stuff. And I started kind of like DJing, like just playing songs for people, making people mix CDs and shit like that. And like I had been doing that before and kind of during the band, but then when I got into the band stuff, I just like fell in love with the time that we were being in the studio, and was like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. Like I had so much fun recording that album that it was like a light switch went off, and I was like, everything that I do for the next like 10 years is all going to be like trying to get me to where I want to be. You know what I mean?
Where did, because you're making beats.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I listened to your beats, and they're nothing to joke about. They're good beats.
Yeah, I make a lot of weird shit.
Yeah, but there's a lot of like there's like a lo-fi vibe. Sometimes I'm listening.
I learned a lot since like I started taking it seriously. You know what I mean? I still never really like took any like piano lessons or anything like that. Like I have a really good ear, so I can kind of sit down and like noodle around. Mm-hmm. But if you were to play a F minor 7 or whatever, I'd be like, I don't fucking know.
You're just going off the ear.
Yeah. And like I have good rhythm, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like at some point during all that, I got a like a little MPK mini, little keyboard with the drum pads.
Yeah.
I was learning how to like mess around with like Fruity Loops and stuff like that.
Gotcha.
And I just kind of like kept doing that for years until I actually like figured out how to like structure songs.
Yeah.
And then you know.
Have you always been into like that type of the boom bap type vibe?
Yeah.
I hear
yeah.
a lot of that when I'm listening to your beats, and there's a lot of sampled hip hop that sounds it's really dope shit.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man.
Yeah, I mean, I listen to like all kinds of music, you know. But like if you were to look at like my recent Spotify playlist, it's like grindcore, crazy death metal shit, and like Big L and like Raekwon and like all like you know like older kind of like 90s boom bap chill vibe type stuff.
Absolutely.
Also some more like modern, you know, but still within that world like Joey Badass and like Griselda and like Benny, you know, all the guys from Griselda.
Is that your lane of music?
That's what I like to listen to the most, personally. I also listen to like classical music and like weird meditation, psychedelic rock shit.
Nothing weird with that, dude.
Like when I'm not at the studio, you know what I mean? But when I'm at the studio, like I'm working on who knows what kind of music. So
you're using music a lot with everything that you're doing. Besides, I mean, I know you're working, but as far as like when you're driving, when you're cleaning, when you're doing, is music always involved in your life, or is there or not as much?
Yes and no. I mean, it depends. Like when I'm driving,
I'll listen to music all day, every day, depending on the mood I'm in.
Right. I guess it depends on like how long. Like if I'm going on a really long drive, like I'll probably listen to podcasts. If I'm just like bopping down to the store real quick, like I oftentimes will listen to anything.
Yeah.
It really depends too on like what's going on that week. Because like, for example, like 2 Saturdays ago, I had like a 10-hour day of like recording drums. And like I didn't want to listen to like any percussion that whole week. I was listening to like a lot of ambient stuff. I was listening to a lot of talk radio. I was like, I do not want to listen to like anyone playing the drums.
Someone came in and just recorded drums?
Yeah, so we were currently working with a bunch of different artists, but one of them is this band called the A-Knots. It's a punk group that they're from York. Yeah. They haven't put out a project since like '91 or something like that, and they got back together and they're doing a record with us. Yeah, and we had, you know, it's like 11 songs or something like that, so we just had like a full day of just the drums.
I have a surprise for you folks.
Let's talk about the podcast because while listening to your podcast, I can't remember which one, but I remember hearing you kind of say something along the lines of like you weren't expecting to take it where it is now.
Yeah.
Talk about that for me.
Yeah, so like I don't know. I feel weird even talking about it on other people's podcasts like that like aspect of it.
Yeah.
But so I'll give you like the rundown, I guess, right? Sure. So I started it just kind of as like a fun thing that I was going to do. I was like, I'll just start a podcast. Why not? You know, I have all these microphones and shit. Yeah. I have some time. I'll interview people. Maybe I'll put it out. Maybe I won't, whatever. And what I was doing was like I was kind of curating it more. Like the first 30 or 40 episodes were actually released in seasons. Now if you go to the feed, like they're all just there.
Yeah.
But if you listen to them, it's like, hey, what's up? Welcome to season 3, episode whatever, you know?
Yeah.
So I was doing like, I would do 10 episodes. I would go out, I would find 10 people. And I sucked at it really bad. Like when I was first starting out, I'm just gonna be honest.
That's how it always is.
If you go back and listen to it, like it's embarrassing. Like I'm so naked on the mic, just or green on the mic, just like, you know, hi, my name's Byron. Like, what's your name and occupation? Like, you know, question answer type thing. But yeah, I didn't really like take it seriously. I was like, I'm never gonna make money off this. This is just a fun thing I'm gonna do. I'm still in like the back of my mind. I don't really want to monetize it. Yeah. Just because I feel like I went down that road already with like especially like with making beats, where like it was something that I loved so much, and then I got money involved, and people started paying me for it, and I felt like weird. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it kind of changed how I was doing it, and I don't want to do that with the podcast because the podcast to me is like so authentic and like
it is
just, you know,
it's really
it's
cool,
dude.
It's like like people just chilling. Yeah. Whatever comes up, we just talk about it. It's real low key and it's a low key vibe.
Yeah. Right. But I mean, like with that still being said, like we have really, really shitty Like, shout out if you listen to the podcast, like some of our shit on Instagram or whatever. Like, we have a horrible interaction with our fans and stuff. But the biggest thing is I don't push it at all.
Yeah.
Like, I understand that Instagram is cool. Like, we get a couple likes and people follow the shit or whatever, but like, I really don't see any like turnaround from the people that are listening to the podcast, the people that are like going from Instagram to listen to it or whatever.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
So I've never really like given that much of a shit about it, which I understand like for growth and for this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
But mind you, that's all based on what I'm about to say. Like, I try really, really hard to like keep it kind of like shielded, to be like, oh, like it's not like we're getting like millions and millions of streams and shit. But I recently got a statistic report, and we're like the top 10% out of all the podcasts, out of like 3 million some podcasts. So like a lot of people do listen to it. Like I hate to like put the stats out there a whole lot, because it's like
something.
I feel like I get a lot of people that hit me up that are like, I want to promote this, let me come on your show, and like I don't really want it to be like that.
Yeah.
Even though I do promote people's work and stuff like hardcore, like I've always wanted it to be like just random, like, hey, you know, nice to meet you, let's talk. Oh, you do this thing, that's fine, we can promote that. Not like
just for the love.
You know, like, you know.
No, I dig it.
But I mean, I don't knock it. I don't knock promotion at all. You know, obviously.
You never really know who's listening, like until something like what you just said, or like, you know, somebody will kind of tell me like, hey, when's the next episode going on? Like, I didn't even know you were fucking listening to the episode, because it's hard. It's hard in the social media,
right,
and trying to navigate that. Like, when we talk about wormholes, that's another one where it's just like, how can I plug it? How can I work this? How can I share it? How can I? And sometimes I'm just like, dude, I just want to fucking just make the podcast,
right,
and just kind of like
throw it out there.
Maybe just a little blip here and then, but
you
get the same 7 people that like it, and those are like ride or dies.
Yeah.
One of the things that you do at the end of, towards the end of your interviews or podcasts, however you want to label them, is you start asking questions, and you always ask like I don't want to say a dark question, but you always ask something that kind of provokes. Is that something that you're always doing?
I realized, I was like, dude, someone's gonna call me out for this at some point.
Because I remember you saying something along the lines like, I like to ask all my guests this. And I'm like, this is actually pretty good, because sometimes someone's not ready for that. And you kind of put them on that.
I'll be honest, like the question you're talking about for sure is like, what's the most emotional pain you've ever dealt with?
Yeah.
Yo, so like when I first started doing the podcast, one of Lindsay and I, my girlfriend and I that made the questions, we had a lot of questions that had like double sides to it. So one of them was like, what's the most physical pain you've ever been in? What's the most emotional pain you've ever been in? You know? And I asked people that shit, and like people would always have like physical, like, oh, I broke my leg one time, and sometimes it was a crazy story, and like that's interesting. But also like when people, anytime that the emotional pain thing came up, almost every single time I would immediately get to like see like directly into somebody's brain about some shit. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because like I try, if anything, like I try to like steer the conversation like as personal and as like real as possible, because I've always like had a knack for just the kind of like talking to people and shit. And I'm not trying to like get stuff out of the guests, but I'm trying to like get to know them in like an hour. Yeah. And I find if you're like, hey, you know, what's your favorite color? Or like, hey, like tell me about like the worst thing that's ever happened to you in your entire life, and like how you like moved on from that. Like it says a lot more about who you are as a person. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that's like one question that keeps kind of like coming back. But like 30 episodes ago or something like that, I don't remember who it was specifically. I asked that question towards the end of the podcast after we had like a lovely conversation, and then they were just bummed as fuck for like the rest of the day, and like texted me and was like, "Yo, like, let you know, they were like, dude, I can't stop thinking about this shit. Like, you really like," because it was like a therapeutic moment for them, and I'm not a therapist, you know what I mean?
It wasn't that bad.
No, but they weren't like stoked about it, you know. So then I was like, I should start asking people. I should start giving people the option. Be like, do you want to go in a super dark place or a super light place?
You do that.
And like sometimes, and then you know what I mean. Light's like, oh, you know, like lovey-dovey, beautiful shit or whatever. That's really the only like recurring, I'd say, like segment that's on the podcast. But like, I want to really like change it, because like the people that listen to it like almost like expect it's gonna happen now.
Yeah, well,
you know what I mean?
But I like it though.
Yeah,
because I like when you said engaging with people and people kind of open up more. That's like the whole gist of what I'm doing is like that allowing people to be vulnerable enough so that we can then connect, because that's where people really start relating, is like, oh, wait a minute, yeah, I kind of had some fucked up shit that happened. And when you hear somebody talk about it in a very vulnerable way, it allows for like growth. And I don't know, it's just I hate to say it's cool to listen to somebody else's shit, but it is therapeutic in a way. And so I appreciate it when you do that, because it's like you can have a great conversation, but now let's get, you know, if you want to, let's get deep.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, because I can relate to a lot of things that people talk about, and I'm sure you can as well. Has that always been like are your experiences in life pushing you to want to learn more about other people's experiences?
Yeah. I'll be 100%, dude. Like, I've had a very, very weird life.
Very weird life.
Yeah, very weird. Like, I grew up like middle class, chill family shit. Like, not really a lot of like struggles and whatnot. Like, it was pretty fucking easy. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
And like somewhere around the road, I don't know like what went on in my mind, but I was like, I'm gonna do bad things because it'll be fun. You know what I mean? Like really, I'll tell you what it was. Like, I've told the story on the podcast before. Like, I found out that when you turn 18, if you get arrested, like, you have to go to like jail. And I was like, all right, well, before I'm 18, I'm gonna break like every fucking crime that exists because like I won't get in trouble. Was like my thought process, which is fucking dumb as shit. And I was always hanging out with like older kids and like going out and doing dumb shit. And like for the span of like from when I was probably like 13 to like 23 was just like chaos of like me putting myself in like the worst case scenarios possible. I got involved with like a lot of like really dumb shit. I say that just because like I just go to work now. I make cool music and shit. Like, I tell these funny stories on the podcast every once in a while. But I'm still trying to like figure out like all the weird shit that I went through. Like, does other people do that shit? Like younger kids and stuff? Like, there was a lot of like fun times and a lot of like real bad times and shit, you know?
Okay, yeah.
But like I had so many like weird like movie type nights and shit when I was in like high school. Like going out, I'm like linked up with these like crazy drug dealers that had like a ton of money, and they were like doing all this like really cool lavish shit. And I was like 16 and was like, yeah, like hell yeah, like fucking rock and roll. You know what I mean? Just like hanging out with these people and shit. And like had so many crazy parties and shit. Like, I remember when I was like 15 or 16, I went to this party out in like Baltimore, and there was like they were doing like tattoos live and shit. It was like some like baseball player's house or like all this just like weird shit. You like that.
Baseball player like what?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
In the big leagues?
I don't know. And like I don't do sports. I don't know like sports, but the Orioles or some shit.
The Orioles. Get out. So you're at a baseball player's house.
He wasn't there.
What are you doing at 15, 16 years old going to Baltimore? How does that even happen?
You just like know a friend that has a car. You know what I mean?